introduce you to Boom Miles, a unique and likable guy. Everyday life, friends and family makes up the artistry.
Okay, so we're talking about what happens after death. But first, we have to start with life, right? The first, talk about this idea of what is it to live, you know? So just on the surface, I see it as being able to detect reality. Now, you guys were looking at the unfinished Swan, because we're going to use this as a way to talk about an idea of what happens after you die. Now, we're talking about life for a second while this is queuing up. And what we see, like I said, life is just being able to detect reality. Like our brain, we have a brain so that we can detect the things around us. The brain controls everything, right? It controls the eyes and so forth. But that stuff can live independent and can function independent without a brain. Like, you don't need a brain to do those things, right? We've seen, and then you have species without a brain, and they are alive, right? But the brain, just as a raw, and I'm no by any means an expert, right? I'm sure there are some people who exclusively study the brain in the human body, which I do not. So, like I said, I'm not an expert. But what I am is just a guy with some ideas. Could be wrong, could be right. Now, like I said, we're detecting reality. We are just observing reality. Now, we're in the game right now, and we can't see anything. And this is my belief. Now, some people, this is a little bit of a mixture of a lot of stuff. So this could be limbo, right? That in-between place before you are recycled. Now, like reincarnation is with the purpose of finally achieving, like, you know, you're being a good person and finally achieving some type of goal, right? There's a goal. Maybe you are to live that perfect life and to be a really good human beings as the highest form of life, right? And I'm not talking about that. But if you think about the Final Fantasy movie, The Spirit Within, where the life, that spirit, meaning the life of the whole planet, right? It's like life, if you think about life as an atmosphere, like oxygen, and things that's in it can grow, it can move, it can be alive. But in the vacuum of space, like, all of that force cannot be alive, right? So now we're talking about death. It's a little bit, my idea of it is like what we see now. Now in this game, the unfinished Swan, like, I am moving around, I'm jumping around, but I don't have a reference for which I can move, or where I can gauge of where I'm going and where I'm not. So I feel like this is a representation of death. This is how it is once you die. Like, once you die, after it's over, right? So in that moment that it's fading, the brain is processing, okay, where it's time to shut down shop, even if, you know, because we don't really know how fast things calculate, but we know that it's really fast. So in that moment that everything is now turned off, I feel like we are now a part of that spirit, that life that is around us in the atmosphere. Now, playing off of the idea of, okay, there's a reason why we have living things on this planet, and that there are no living things on other planets. And no matter how deep you go, right, like if you just go into the ocean, at the very bottom is going to be creatures. And if you go beyond the depths that we could possibly make it, because we would be crushed and anything that we have would be crushed, there's still life there, right? All the way to where the temperatures are really high. It's like volcanic, even on volcanoes, right? In the lava, there are flies that can eat it, or that can live on it, right? So life is all over this planet, and I feel like there's a realm that we can't see, that we just cannot experience, but that realm cannot experience this world. It cannot experience reality as we know it without a body, like without something of this world, creating something of the world to experience the world that it's in. And it's that longing that's what we have. You don't want to die. Most people know. Some people, they do. And, mental illness is real. But for the most part, you don't want to die. Like, you would fight for life. We want to live longer as human beings. And I feel like, which any creature can do it, but I think ultimately life, the atmosphere of life, the spirit of life is to leave the planet and to go to different planets and to colonize and to spread life. Right? Now, we as humans, we see ourselves as intelligent, of course, because we are the species that we're looking at, but we want to see other things that are intelligent. Like, we want life, we want to create life on other planets. We constantly try to create life, and it is that drive that, compels us. So in death, here we are. We're in the white, in the thick of everything. Right? This is it. Like this is it right here. What this screen that we're looking at. Now, if I throw some paint on this floor, right? At first it seemed like we was in nothing, but if we look at that as a reference, now we can see that, okay, I'm moving away. Now this space, now that we have something to gauge, you can see me jump, right? But once we turn away and now we just, but here, this is like us when you're not in any type of living form. This is just you in the spirit. And once you see this, of course, you can now gauge, like now we can gauge reality looking at this, okay? So I can come to it, I can now look, I can move around. Whereas even before, like over here, like I'm turning, right? But it just takes, because we don't see this, we can't gauge that I'm turning, right? Now that we see this, we have this as a reference, we can detect motion. But without a body, this is reality. This is the spirit, trying to. And I think that our consciousness, because some people question, all right, do we have consciousness? Like, consciousness is outside of the brain. And that is a big one for me. Like, I question that myself. Like, that's a hard concept to understand. Is consciousness outside of the brain, independent, of the brain? Whereas, like, you have this being here. Once you take form, then at that point you can say, all right, now I have a body, now I'm ready to be, a creature in a vessel, right? So the whole idea now is that we are searching for a body, right? That, now who knows? Like, I don't know if how much of us are, like, if we're truly searching, but I think I would think that we are. And that's, but the thing is, once you get into, if you get into a human body, right, you retain some of those memories. There was a case once about a little boy who, he remembered, like, he felt like he was a pilot who died. And he remembered much of that pilot's life early on, like when he was 2. He could talk about things and he could tell you about this pilot. But as he got older, 7 or whatever, he couldn't remember that stuff. And it was like the pilot left. So, I mean, that story, because most of these stories, you never know. You never know what is real. Right? You never know. But, let's see, they are just moved in a circle. But without this here, you don't know how you're moving. Now, like I was saying with the character, the guy who, see, now I've moved away. Now I kind of remember how I can get back to where I was, but, like right there. And I know that I'm up against the wall just because I can't back up anymore, right? This is it, but we can see that the wall is here. This has to be a wall. And then here is another wall. And then all of this is a wall, right? So as I turn around, so once we back up, so here, now, but you cannot perceive this without that reference, like without that blob of paint, right? Especially for us, we can only see it, right? And that's the thing, like this character in this game, of course he could feel, right? But just imagine if you can't feel, all you are is just thought, just the mind itself out of its body, right? You don't have a body. You don't have senses, the sense of touch, taste, smell, all of that stuff is gone, but your mind is still activated, trying to perceive and interpret the world, right? Now this little boy, back to him, as he got older, he forgot those memories. He forgot who he was as, like who he was as a man. And some of that could have been him just dealing with the fact that his family, his wife, all of that was gone. Those memories, his life, he is now in a new body. So it was no need trying to re-tear old wounds, and he just was in this prison, maybe he just like, look, man, I don't remember, it's hard to tell. I mean, I would have to interview the kid, but that is a fascinating story because it leads us to this. If you're in limbo and then you wake up into reality, right? At that same moment that your consciousness shuts down, right? Because then it's to say, okay, is it one consciousness? Are there several? Like I I kind of feel like there's more than one. Like or no, that there's one, but in the body, there's many, right? You as a listener, you're listening to this, but we are the same. Each creature, we are interpreting and sending feedback of reality to this being, us, our true form that has in its realm, this is its realm, right? It doesn't have this little speck to say like, okay, here is a wall, here is a wall. Like we have walls, right? I mean, I can keep going, and this is my representation of death, that actual moment. And right now, I cannot find my way back to the speck. Like our reference point, like I'm away from it. I don't know where it is. So there it is. Let's go ahead and see. Here we are. So now with more reference, let's see if we can find our original speck where we started. So, but as you can see, without the senses, like we're truly lost. And that's my idea of death, that in-between moment, and there's nothing. There's just only this, right? And the body creates the reference for us. See? So now, with that all the way over there, we can now see that this is a bench here. That means I can jump on it, right? But remember, we cannot touch. All your senses are gone. You have no sense to interpret reality. So right here, this is just a wall, right? This is a wall. Even if I jump, no matter what I'm doing, it's still a wall. Like right now I'm jumping, right? But without this, you can't even tell. When we walk forward or when we move forward, like I don't even know if I stopped or not. But once I look here, then I can see that, okay, this is here, in between here. So now we can see reality. I know that this is a bench, right? So I can hit it with paint. We have a bench. Let's see if we can find where I was. Where did I start? So, I mean, I've traveled pretty far away. All right, and here was my original point. But I could not find that again, right? So we could have moved around this whole world and with no type of reference. And this is how I feel like this is the after part of death, the barren part, that exact moment. Now, I don't know if spirits and stuff like that will come, but eventually, but just in that in-between time, no matter if it's just a split second, I feel like just being without the senses, this is what it would be like, minus, all of this stuff. So that's that little rant. We're out.